It's like it's almost 6 o'clock here. Well, has anyone spoken to Neil?
No.
Okay, well, I guess I can do this by myself again. Okay, let's do this. Welcome to FilmCrunch. I'm Veronica Santiago. You know, this is not gonna work. Okay, I've got this thing. Let's see what I can do. Expecto stupido.
Welcome to FilmCrunch. I'm Neil Estet.
And I'm Veronica Santiago. Before we start our show today, we'd like to do a segment today leading into our review of The Astronaut Farmer, recently out on DVD. And again, we'll be talking about The Astronaut Farmer later, which is a family inspirational movie. And so we'd like to do a segment on our top 5 inspirational movies. Now, I did tell Neil I have a very tough time saying things are my top 5 movies because depending on my mood, my list may change accordingly. So it's hard. These are not the names I would probably submit to the AFI as my top 5 inspirational movies of all time. So they're kind of divided into categories. But there is only one movie per category, so there's only 5 movies.
Good thing.
I just want to preface that.
Oh.
So I'm going to go ahead and start out and say, for a movie, an inspirational educational movie, I'm going to go with Billy Madison. I know you think it's kind of weird, but I just, you know, as much grief as I've given Adam Sandler recently for some of the things he's done recently, maybe because he's pretty much done the same shtick all the time, I wanted to go back to the heyday when Adam Sandler was still relatively fresh and new and say Billy Madison because, you know, he basically started school from kindergarten up through, you know, college, and he kicked butt in the end. And call it what it is.
Okay.
But I loved it.
That's
I
a
loved
subjective
it.
thing.
I know. I'm not saying these are quality films. They're just movies I enjoy and still inspire at the same time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I will start by saying that I feel the same way that you do. Not all of my films are probably the all-time top 5 inspirational movies if I really sat down for hours and hours and hours and contemplated the whole thing.
Because really all that matters is that in the end you want them to win.
Exactly. Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course. And that they have lasting appeal. That you
Exactly.
remember them and
Yes.
you know, they stick with you. So these are my, you know, my top 5 that I've thought about, but not necessarily the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
So first, movie that inspired me growing up, for sure through my early teens and beyond, would be Rudy. Of course, Sean Astin trying to get into Notre Dame and then eventually trying to play football for Notre Dame, the very elite football team, and of course in the end winning or not winning, but actually getting to play in a real game after all the struggle and all the guys fought for him and everyone chanting, you know, Rudy at the end, Rudy. Very inspirational movie. Come on, that stuck around with me for sure. Very good.
Okay, well, segueing out of your sports category, I'm going to go with my sports category now, and this one is almost way too obvious, but again, it's hard for me to avoid, but I had to go with Hoosiers.
I knew it. I knew
Hoosiers,
you were going to say
how can
Hoosiers.
you not? I mean, because it's obvious.
Yeah,
Hoosiers,
no.
I cannot not watch that movie. It's amazing. I've watched it 1,000 times, and still every single time I'm wondering if they're going to win at the end. And I don't know. Like, could this possibly change? Will that picket fence move not work? But no, Hoosiers, how can you not love it? It's a classic.
No, it's all right. I'm glad I've got you pegged because this is going to make things a little
Because
easier
you were worried
for me.
when I started with Billy Madison.
Right, I was
Yeah.
like, what? These throw a curveball. All right. My next will be Forrest Gump. Might be a little bit predictable, and I'm sure that would, you know, that's on everyone's list or on many lists. You know, very epic film. Tom Hanks, fantastic as the lead, and it, you know, just at its foundation, at its core, it's about a guy who is mentally disabled, doing amazing things, and through all of his trials and tribulations, he is still benevolent and nice and giving, and you know, in the end, you can't help but empathize with his success and cheer for him. I mean, because he makes it, you know. No, Forrest Gump was fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's a good, very good movie. I'm going to move on to my working professional category, people who make it in the system despite all the odds. And originally I was thinking Pursuit of Happiness, but that one was almost a little too obvious for me again as well. And I wanted to actually go back in time a little bit and pick Working Girl.
Okay.
Loved that movie. And maybe it's because it's a female character, and so I feel, you know, some bond with her. But awesome. I mean, it's just amazing because I just can't figure out a time where women with nice bangs ever made it that far into the working system. And that truly is inspirational when, you know, you can overcome the makeup and the, you know, the bracelets. And
Of course, yeah.
yeah. And back when Harrison Ford was looking really good too. So,
Yeah.
no, I love that movie. I love that movie. And especially because Sigourney Weaver was such a scare. I was going to say a bad word, but I'm holding back on that.
Oh my. It's a family show.
I know, but love it.
Working Girl?
Yes.
All right.
Very.
Well, I don't have
good.
any categories, but this will fall into my, I guess, mentally disabled category again if I had to. And I'm going to go with I Am Sam because, you know, like Forrest Gump, it is about a mentally disabled person trying to succeed. What's that? And Rudy.
Oh,
What?
Forrest Gump.
Huh?
You're talking about Forrest.
Yeah, Forrest Gump was the other
Was
category.
Rudy mentally disabled?
No.
No, he's talking about Forrest Gump.
Yeah, he was just short, and you know, yeah, he was just short, but determined. No, so I Am Sam. You know, it's about a guy who's mentally challenged, mentally disabled, and he is just trying. He's just struggling so hard to raise his daughter and succeed just in life and be there for her. And I think that Sean Penn didn't get the proper recognition that he should have for that film. I think he probably should have won more awards than he did, including an Academy Award, in my opinion, for that year. I was very upset. But no, I Am Sam, just fantastic, fantastic movie. And I mean, again, you can't help. I mean, you can take somebody who's got hardships and struggles in their lives and watch them succeed in a movie, fictional or otherwise, and be totally cheering for them. But when it's somebody who even is below that, who has, you know, that other challenge in their life, which is, you know, obviously a disability,
Yeah.
watching that person just try to do the daily things that we do, you know, just go to a job, support your family, fantastic, fantastic.
Were you surprised that he was like one of the first mentally challenged nominees or actors who played a mentally challenged person to not actually win the best acting category?
Oh yes, I was. Well, I mean, maybe not surprised that he was, you know, because we can't just give it all to actors who portray
Usually that happens.
mentally challenged people. But no, he did a phenomenal job, and maybe that was just sort of the turning of the tide as far as the Academy was concerned, and they were going to just start trying to deviate from that.
Yes, but
no,
having said that, if you want to ever win one in that category, that would be the route to go.
absolutely, yeah,
Find a mentally challenged character.
hands down.
Kind of going along the medical lines here, I'm going to go with Lorenzo's Oil.
Oh, fantastic.
Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah,
Love that
absolutely.
movie. Love that movie. And Nick Nolte, Susan Sarandon, although their accents were probably questionable, especially in Nick Nolte's part. The story about parents who have a son with ALD, or at least I don't think at the time they really had a name for it, but they're basically told their son is going to die or not live a very long life that as it is, and they basically fight to try and find a cure for their son. And while they may not find a cure for him in the end, they do at least find a remedy of sorts that help to help prolong his life. And despite all the odds and all the professors and doctors saying that there is no way to help their son, they do it themselves. I mean,
Right.
they're not they're not in the medical field by whatsoever, but they learn, they study, and they basic naysayer story,
Right.
fight against the system, and they proved them wrong.
And the resources in this movie, I mean, just from what I remember, I saw it a very long time ago, but the resources available to parents in that day, you know, there was no real internet, I mean, no self-diagnosis, there wasn't a lot of resources for parents to look into these kinds of things, and so really, so much more phenomenal of an achievement.
And it's one of those stories where the government, is obviously concerned, where there's some grassroots organization, basically coming up with their own methods, and them not wanting these people to promote these drugs that they may or may not discover, because for a good reason, you know, they don't, if these things don't work in the long term, you know, the government doesn't want to be involved.
Right.
But, you know, when you're desperate, you will do anything.
Right.
And yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, well, my next is sort of the post-tragedy film, which I don't know if it's going to be on yours,
Is this
but
inspirational?
yeah, United 93. United
yeah,
93.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a better movie that inspired me after such a tragedy such as September 11th. And just the way that it was directed with such care, and, you know, it was just really, really, Paul Greengrass was just really careful to make sure he was respectful to all the people on the plane and to the tragedy as a whole. Brought people from the tragedy in to actually make the movie. There's really nothing more inspirational than that in itself, but the fact that he also researched these people's lives, talked to their family members, and then subsequently made just a fantastic, fantastic movie that wasn't overproduced, that was simple, and that really, really told the story. Whether or not it's true or how close to the truth it even is, it's really what the country needed, I think, after a tragedy like that, and it really, really was fantastic. Yeah.
You know I love that movie.
Of course.
So I can't argue with whatever category you end up putting it in the end. For my last movie, this would be another movie that where someone's thumbing their nose to the system. Erin Brockovich. Really, such an inspirational movie for many, many reasons. But you can consider this a medical movie, you can consider it a government movie, or you can consider it an insurance movie, or
Right.
anything like that. But I can't say enough about this movie. The thing is, the movie's been overplayed, and you may, you know, I'm be anti-Julia Roberts at this point, which I kind of am, admittedly. But I have to admit that, you know, especially when you see movies like Sicko come out these days, though this is not necessarily an insurance movie per se, just the fact that, you know, people messing with real lives here, you know, an overwhelming amount of evidence going against big corporations, and, you know, one person fighting so hard to buck the system. And also, this is one of Steven Soderbergh's finer pieces of work.
Absolutely.
I mean, the thing is, to this day, he's just becoming more and more flashy, and you kind of forget that he can just do simple films. And it was such a great storyteller. I really do love this movie a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, this isn't the first film, or even close to one of the first films, to really show a powerful woman.
Yeah.
But again, this really goes back to what you said about Working Girl, where it is a woman who is very feminine and who is very voluptuous but wants to be taken seriously, and that in itself is the strong point. And Julia Roberts did play it very well, and you're right, I am a little anti-Julia Roberts at this point. But
having said that, it's a great story.
Absolutely.
And I think I remember hearing about, she heard about the story through, like, I think her chiropractor, like, her chiropractor was, like, Erin Brockovich's chiropractor, and she heard the story about this woman who did this thing, and, like, was like, wow, what a great movie. And exactly, I mean, it's just everyday stories that you hear,
Right.
the little people taking on big corporations like that.
fantastic.
So, no, great movie.
well, this is going to be the last one for me, but and it definitely deviates a little bit from the categories that we've been discussing. But my fifth in the list of top 5 inspirational movies is going to be Sicko. And I don't know if that's just because
wow.
I don't know if that's just because it's resonating so heavily with me right now because I just watched it. But this movie has, in so many ways, inspired me to become part of the discussion and become part of the debate. And really, you know, we all know that the system is bad, but you don't, I mean, up until this point, I didn't really have that much knowledge of other countries' systems and how they were dealing with universal health care in their nation. And for this to be brought to my attention and exposed as a problem that could be fixed or at least remedied in some way using bits and pieces of other countries' programs, I really think it's just a phenomenal film. It's Michael Moore's best film by far, and just knowing, I mean, I myself have never really had health problems, but I know that I'm going to have health problems someday. But I also know people who have health problems, and so anyone who watches this movie can completely relate. And it really, really, really inspired me to just be involved, I think.
Yeah. And while we should obviously be appreciative of what we have here in America, it inspires us not to settle for less, or just not to settle for what we get and just be happy with it because we live here.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Great.
Yeah.
I,
Leave your
believe
comments.
me, I have many more.
Yeah, she's
She
barely got it down.
limited
My
time,
gosh.
so.
So leave your
Yeah.
comments. I mean, if there are any that we left out that you want to discuss on the either on the forums or just right underneath the episode here, and
Because I'm sure there are plenty we left out.
Oh,
And again,
plenty.
it just depends on our mood.
that's right. That's right.
Because Billy Madison really just depends on the mood. Might not be
Yeah,
inspiring to
that
some,
really depends.
but you really want him to kick butt in the end.
That's
so.
true. That's true. Yeah. That was a heavy segment. I got a little heavy.
Heavy.
Yeah. I mean, it's heavy. I will be individually reviewing the theatrical release of Rescue Dawn. Rescue Dawn is the story of Dieter Dangler, a Navy pilot who is shot down flying over Laos during the Vietnam War and taken prisoner. Sharp and resourceful, Dangler plans an escape from the heavily guarded prison, and with 5 other POWs escapes into the jungle of Viet Cong and tries to find rescue. The film stars Christian Bale and Steve Zahn, is written and directed by Werner Herzog, and is rated PG-13. Now, let me first say that I knew almost nothing about this movie going in. Absolutely nothing. And in fact, I think you pointed out to me what the movie was about, or just that it was even in existence, and I thought, okay, Christian Bale, Steve Zahn, I like both of those actors. I mean, in my opinion, Christian Bale can really do no wrong. He is just...
Me
got your opinion too. He's got
Me too.
so many awards in front of him that are going to be throughout his life. He's just phenomenal. So I knew that I was excited about this movie, and sadly I am not familiar with Herzog's work at all, and that is I'm so ashamed of that. He's been making films for since the 60s, and ashamedly I know nothing about him. I know he made the film Grizzly Man in 2005. That's all. I didn't see it. I know it was great, but I knew nothing. So let me just first say that this film is exactly the way a film of this kind should be made. It's an intimate story that is a reflection of personal struggle in wartime. Now that means there's not a lot of gun battles, there's not a lot of fighting on land or even in the air. It's really just contained with Dangler and his prisoners. That's almost the extent of the entire movie. And it really is just a super powerful movie. And somehow Herzog made a movie that feels free-flowing and airtight at the same time. And I know he said publicly that he does not storyboard any of his movies. He does. He allows actors to improvise large parts of the script. I mean, he's very. I mean, he just lets things happen for the most part. But the way he edits, and I mean the way he directs, is so tight. Every scene in this movie contributed to the end. I mean, contributed to the overall plot in such a way that I've never seen before. It was fantastic, but it felt casual. And the nervous camera and just the minimalist soundtrack, but well-placed music was just fantastic. And I mean, I just really can't tell you how much I felt like I was right there with them. And and I can't say enough about this film. Even the sound, the parts in movies when you would have a hard time understanding someone, because a lot of this film is about surreptitious plans of the prisoners, and they're talking very low, and they're very quirky, very sort of idiosyncratic characters, and they've been in this prison for a long time, and they're very just like, and then this, and we're gonna do this and this, and you can hear everything. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know this guy's work, but it is really just a phenomenal movie, and I cannot say enough about Christian Bale in this particular role.
Yeah.
I think, like you had suggested to me, he's going to be nominated for an Academy Award, and I think he should win. And I think that, honestly, I think Steve Zahn may have a supporting actor
That's what I've heard.
in as well.
He lost a lot of weight for that film.
So did Christian Bale.
But wasn't Steve Zahn a POW longer than Christian Bale?
Yes,
had
he
been in
was.
this movie,
He was.
So he obviously had more reason to lose weight.
Absolutely, but Christian Bale as well. I mean, when he first gets to the camp, to the prison, he's probably got and 30 more pounds on him than he does by the end. And you just I mean, you can't help but admire the investment that the actors made into these
and
roles.
That Christian Bale ate real maggots for this film.
I figured. There's no way you could have faked it.
So that's commitment right there.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, not only does he eat those maggots, okay, but he grabs a snake. He grabs a snake. I mean, it's just like a full-on shot. He grabs a snake and pulls it up, and it's like striking at him, and he drops it, and he grabs it again. These guys, they went through everything, and you can tell that the director did too. I mean, just the thickness of the brush of the jungle. I mean, the locations would just have to be insane. And just, you know, there's a big fire scene where there's all this fire and, you know, gunshots, and I mean, it really just, everybody was so engaged. I loved this movie.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I absolutely love this movie. I think
yeah,
it's
I recommended the film to him, and yet I didn't even see it.
Yeah,
or I haven't seen it yet,
right.
I should say.
It's very, very good. Strong. I highly recommend.
Was it weird seeing a Vietnam era film now? Obviously, given like all the Iraq-related films, was it weird going back in time? Or even like now that you see the Vietnam era films, I don't want to keep saying area, that how you can relate that to modern day and the war, you know, the war going on now?
No, I think, well,
I mean, is it
in
almost
some
like
ways.
a cautionary tale, or in some way?
It didn't really feel that way. It didn't feel like it was meant to translate in that way at all. It really was the story of, and Herzog made a documentary about this gentleman, Dieter Dangler, that was called
I just find it extremely almost coincidental that this movie is coming out now.
It does feel coincidental, but it really doesn't feel like there's meant to be any crossover between the war in Iraq and the Vietnam War. However, that being said, it also is a mess. I mean, Vietnam was a total mess.
Us repeating our mistakes, that theme.
Well, that theme is pretty obvious, but I don't think it's meant to be a heavy-handed theme in the movie itself. But no, I think it's a war movie for people who don't like war movies, and it's just an intimate portrayal of the suffering and resourcefulness of just not only a brilliant man in real life, Dieter Dangler, but brilliant cast and a brilliant, brilliant writer and director. 4.5 reels without even blinking an eye. I love this movie. Go right out and see it if you can. Yes.
I will be doing a solo review on Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This movie is the 5th movie in the 7-book series. The movie, again, stars Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and this particular movie was directed by David Yates, who is also in line to direct the next Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This movie starts off where obviously the last one ended, when Harry had seen Lord Voldemort for the very first time and had seen his former classmate Cedric being murdered. Unfortunately, in this particular episode, Harry and Dumbledore now have a problem convincing many of the others that he, who must not be named, has returned. To make matters worse, the Ministry seems to want to squash all talk of Lord Voldemort's return and has taken over instruction of Hogwarts and has introduced a new professor, Professor Umbridge. Now, I will want to admit right off the bat that I have only seen, up until now, the first movie in the theater. I have not read any of the books, so I never really felt compelled to see all the movies like everyone else has, because I didn't know the storyline, and so I wasn't really begging for more. But I have seen all the movies now on DVD, partially because I felt compelled to catch up and get into the conversation. And while I have enjoyed the first 4 movies, they all have been enjoyable, this is the first time that I felt the movie was finally getting to what I wanted to see. This movie casts aside pretty much all whimsy and any fun to it, which may be unfortunate for some people, and has become much darker and has a much more adult tone to the film. Even in the opening scenes, you can tell that this is a very different movie, has a much grittier feel to it, even has a more, the best way I can describe it is that it doesn't feel like it was shot on a soundstage for at least the beginning of the film. This movie, again, is much darker, may scare a lot of children. It's PG-13. And there are some frightening scenes, though I think pretty much going into it, most people will know what to expect having read the books. Though, at the same time, I should say, not having read the books, I don't know if this movie follows the storyline very well, and whether or not it was the director's choice to make the movie much darker. But again, this is a much more adult movie. I feel like it's very much a transition piece, because it almost feels like they're going into puberty. The students are finally learning that the spells they learn in class are actually going to have to be applied in real life at some point. They can't just, the reason they're learning all these spells is because they're eventually going to have to defend themselves. And now they're finally being introduced to these darker characters. One bad thing for people who enjoy other characters of the film is that characters like Hermione and Ron Weasley are not featured greatly in this film. This is pretty much almost a Harry film. Unfortunately, again, I don't know if this really follows the storyline of the book, but being that this is a transition film, I think this is the way it's going to have to go. After being the lead of 4 movies and after being battered and beat up by all these dark forces, I think this is the point in the storyline where Harry Potter pretty much has to, he's bearing the brunt of all this weight and all the focus and the attention that's coming onto him, and I think he's just trying to come into his own and decide where he's going and who he's going to have to fight. And I think also he's kind of isolating himself from his friends because he doesn't want them to become involved, and they don't really seem to understand what he's going through, partially because they can't and partially because he doesn't let them. I really enjoyed the film. This movie is just about as long as most of the other ones. It's approaching 2.5 hours, though I felt like this movie was better paced than most of the films. I also enjoyed Imelda Staunton as Professor Umbridge. She was a great addition to the movie, and of course loved all the regulars like Alan Rickman, who's always just a blast to see on any movie.
Right. Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber, yes, Hans Gruber, yes. Die Hard, if you don't know what he's talking about.
But you do.
But you do. So, I liked it. I really, really liked this film. Again, apparently they love David Yates' work so much that they've signed him on to do the next Harry Potter film already.
Right, and do you agree with that decision? You think
I do.
He's the first director that they've asked to return, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Wow.
It could go both ways. Obviously, if a director's done a good job, yes, he should be brought on for another film, but some series are served better when they have, different directors, rotating through different directors and then bringing on a different take, and he brought a different take to this film, and whether or not they should repeat that, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, but I liked this film. I really liked the adult tone because it just, to me, it's like, it's all whimsy and all, fun magic. Okay, yeah, we get through past that. Let's get to the meat of the story now. Let's get to the fighting.
Do you feel like, again, I haven't read the books either, but do you feel like the filmmakers and possibly even J.K. Rowling are trying to make the series grow with the people, the youngsters who probably adopted it with the first book? I mean, do you feel like the dark undertones that have now taken over the series in this one, and I believe the last one was kind of dark too, right? So, do you believe that that's being done on purpose, I guess, or how do you interpret that?
I think she has to. I mean, in the 7th book, this is his 5th year in school. He's becoming an adult. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And he's, finding out that he's going to have this fight with Voldemort eventually in the end, and he's going to have to come to terms with that and prepare himself for that inevitability. So, is that even a word?
Inevitability?
Yes.
Yes.
You understood what I said, so it's a word. So I think not having read the books, that's something that has to happen. That has to mature.
Very,
The characters.
very cool.
But I think this is the best film of the bunch so far.
Oh, really?
And it has made the most money so far of all the films. I give it 4 reels out of 5.
Very nice.
I think you should finally catch up and watch all the films.
I gotta do 3 and 4, yeah.
And 5.
5, then 5, of course. Yeah.
5 as well. But yes, now I feel complete. I must say, I feel complete.
Oh, good.
Because I finally am caught up.
You can be now
I am
part of that
finally
group,
caught up.
right?
Yes.
Click.
I am. Yeah.
Very nice.
I am part of that clique now. I will not be waiting in line for the book, mind you, but I feel better about
Because
myself.
only crazy people would be doing that.
So, yes, I can rest now.
They're all gonna skip to the end anyway. Who cares?
I know.
I
Well, I
know.
think that's partially why I had to watch the 5th film, because I know in a week or two I'm going to find out whether Harry Potter dies or not. So I had to at least, see him grow up.
Right.
So.
Bravo. We will be reviewing the DVD release of The Astronaut Farmer. Charlie Farmer, an ex-astronaut and family man, is building a rocket ship in rural Texas in his barn, and because he actually quit the space program because he needed to save his family's farm and support his family, he never got to go to space. So with the support of his family, he will attempt the greatest journey of his entire life. That is, of course, if the U.S. government will allow him to. The film is directed by Michael Polish and stars Billy Bob Thornton and Virginia Madsen. And I assume it's rated PG.
It is rated PG, yes.
Thank goodness.
I detect a very sarcastic tone in your intro there.
No, there's no.
I don't know why.
That's my normal, how I am.
Well,
I had to reach into the dictionary for that one. All right, let's go.
Yes, that was a recent addition to the Webster's Dictionary.
Yes.
That's how I am. This movie is inspirational, implausible, sweet, and silly all at the same time. And depending on how you look upon this, you could just walk off laughing and saying, what the heck, this could never happen. But having said that, I really liked this movie. This movie, the more I thought about it, just gave me warm fuzzies inside. And I know this could never happen. And it's just crazy to think that this family could have survived as long as they did, given all the financial struggles they went through. And I cannot believe that Virginia Madsen, as a wife, would ever exist and let her husband go on with this dream.
Right.
But having said that, that's not really the point of the film, whether it's credible or possible. I liked this movie because it brought together the family unit. And I like the movie, I should say, to start off with, because it started off right away. It didn't start with the dream. This dream had already been in existence for a long time when the movie started, and the family had already been on board behind this and had been supporting him. So again, he's involved the whole family at this point, and that's what I really liked about it. It was very, very touching to me, and that everyone would support a loved one's dream, as crazy as it is. And I'm just going to stop right there for now.
Okay, I understand your point, and I also agree that plausibility isn't necessarily the main theme. You don't have to necessarily believe what's happening to enjoy the film. However, I think that there are a lot of other issues in the movie that brought it down for me, and just out of the gate I'll say this is definitely a family movie. I don't think that you should go into this as a rational adult thinking that you're going to bring some adult based inspiration out of it. I mean, it really is just about a family sticking together, and that's really all you're going to get out of it. And when I first heard about this movie, I thought, I mean, I didn't know exactly what happened in it, but I thought I had maybe heard about this at some point, and I thought it was kind of maybe based loosely on a true story. But I didn't know that he actually is trying to get to, like, is going to space or whatever. I thought maybe that, I thought I had heard somewhere that there was a farmer who was building a rocket in his barn, and, you know, that was like this big thing. But more like a novelty, like the world's biggest ball of string or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I thought, oh, maybe this could be really exciting based on a true story. That sounds great. And then maybe that's why I was so upset by all the implausibility, and that really brought it down for me, although it doesn't necessarily need to. But I think that its other faults are where it really falls apart, and that is in the writing, which oftentimes for me was far too cheesy and banal and non-existent in the real world. And again, I don't believe that the support would have been there from Charlie's.
But maybe we're
Charlie's
just not
wife.
supportive people.
I don't think that's it, though.
You know?
I don't think that's it. And I also think that, like I said, the performances. Billy Bob Thornton. I really like Billy Bob Thornton. He often does really, really great work. But I think that because he often plays a very rational, down-to-earth, sensible man, that I had a hard time with this, and I should have known right out of the gate.
I'm sorry, Bad Santa, he was a rational, down-to-earth man.
Well, even though...
Or even the Bad News Bears.
No, well, I didn't see the Bad News Bears, but unless you're talking about the greatest Bad News Bears. No, but
Bandits or
Exactly.
Well, I didn't see that either. But
Which movie is he a rational man in?
he's okay, fine. But I'm saying that he's very okay. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. I'm saying that he's very calm. He's very collected, and he often has himself, even if he's not rational. Okay, never mind. My whole thing's just falling apart. Thank you all. You've taken my point and just pounded it into the ground. No, but I did think that his performance was lacking something. It almost seemed like he kind of phoned it in. You know what I mean? He wasn't there for me, and part of that is that I never felt the urgency in this movie. There was never that scene where, even though the family's really supportive, there was never that scene that needed, in my opinion, to take place, which is where his wife, Virginia Madsen's character, and Charlie Farmer get in this huge fight.
And that's what I was going to list that as a fault of the movie, because maybe I'm just not that supportive of a wife. And I have to laugh because I believe this movie came out at the same time around number 23 did, and Virginia Madsen in that movie was a very supportive wife beyond all reason.
Yes,
too. And she played the same character in both movies. And yes, I would be very upset at my husband if we were, whatever, $600,000 in debt to support this dream. But I had to cast that aside in the end, because the whole point of the movie to me was supporting someone in their dreams, and whether or not this is a child versus an adult, because I think you said something along the lines that you didn't see this as an adult movie, or what was it that you said? Like you said it was specifically family, but not about an adult.
Right.
But I think that adult dreams affect the family, and I think this is all about like unfulfilled urges or longings in someone's life, and that you don't do what you've always wanted to do or don't become what you've always wanted to be, that somehow will affect the rest of your life, whether or not you believe that or not. But you may not be as present in your family's life as you think you are, if you don't complete that. And there will always be something missing. And I think that's the point of this film, is that the point where Virginia Madsen tells him, you need to do this for our family, as opposed to not doing it and saving the money for our family, because the whole family would have this huge loss in their life. Yeah. And I think that was really the clincher of the movie to me.
And I understand what you're saying, and I understand that that's what you pulled from it. However, I think that the film could have been done differently, could have been structured in a way that was slightly more plausible,
but
that
I think
had
it's almost
more
like
of
a
a
parable. I don't know that it has to be very plausible. Because in the end, I mean, the end was kind of laughable to me, that, they ended up it was almost anticlimactic.
No.
I should say.
But where do you draw the line? And we get into this a lot of the time, where I talk about...
the thing is, you just have to go with it. Sometimes there are some things you have to check at the door, and this is one of those.
I agree with that. And we get into major discussions about why I think something is plausible and you think it's not plausible. Like time travel, like you just check it at the door and you go with it.
But I think...
But I mean, this is something that actually does try to be rooted in the grassroots...
I think movies about dreams should be just kept, or to that standard. It's a dream.
I suppose. Well, I guess, it is a subjective review on both sides here.
It's a PG movie. It's a family film. It's something, I'm not...
I totally understand that. But, I mean, just even the dialogue, and you know what else that really disappointed me was that the movie started out with this really fun sort of banter. It had funny dialogue, and then it got so serious. And then it tried to make it fun really quick, like funny kind of, And that at the last part during the credits, when the FBI guys are in the audience at the Jay Leno interview, and they're like clapping for him, even though they hated him the whole movie. And I mean I draw the line at cheesy moments like that. I'm just saying a lot more could have probably been taken away from this movie rather than added, and it would have been
I'm sure there are different levels of this movie that could be made. There could be like a PG-13, rated version, an R-rated version, where it's much darker and there's,
right. But I'm saying
much more conflict.
Okay, but you don't need to add you don't need to add that. I mean, okay, you needed more conflict, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be PG-13. But you didn't need violence, you didn't need sex, you didn't need drugs or anything like that would warrant a higher rating. You just needed a better film.
I liked it. It was a short, sweet film.
Okay.
Short, sweet film. And I loved
Short? Wasn't that short?
Yeah, it was. The movie was 104 minutes, and when's the last time that we saw a movie that was like under 2 hours?
Well, I guess I just felt like it dragged on.
Oh.
2 reels.
And I loved Billy Bob.
Okay, well, good for you. 2 reels on my end. I gave it 2 reels. It's just...
I'm gonna give it 3.5.
3.5?
3.5 reels, because it does still have its faults, but it was good enough to be almost 4.
I could not overcome those faults. I'm sorry. I will be doing an individual review of the theatrical release Rescue Dawn. Wow, right out of the gate, I can't even remember. Okay. Oh, my whole leg really from the knee down.
Okay.
It's just gone. Now it's in that like kind of tickly, like it tickles. So you put it down, it's like,
Oh.
oh god.
Oh, was it
No,
a
no,
sleeve?
no, 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 no. Now it's getting prickly. Oh.
For a second there, I thought you were gonna cry.
Yeah. My leg again.
You're just happy.
Them, it's her friend, and they're like, yes, we'll just
Oh, and I hate
squish
Yeah.
them together into one
Yeah,
person.
but having said
terrible
that,
review.
the tone of the book is much darker, I'm assuming, too.
Yes.
Harry's not gonna die. What's wrong?
I was just reading.
Quit looking at my notes. Don't remember that. What the hell?